Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be going through the Keynesian cross model, or it's also known as the aggregate expenditure model. They're kind of used both interchangeably just because it's basically the same thing. If you don't know what it is, aggregate expenditure is basically just aggregate demand, and the Keynesian cross model is supposed to show the relationship between expenditure, basically AD, and output instead of price. So yeah, that's basically the Keynesian cross model or the aggregate expenditure model. I have quite a hard question here. I say it's hard because it's from both the goods and money market, and then you find the equilibrium between them, and then you can put them in an ISLM model. So you'd have, your goods market here with injections and withdrawals. The reason why injections is perfectly elastic or horizontal is because this is your axes, and on the axes we can see that it's national income or total output, right? And the injections of an economy in the goods market aren't directly affected by output. So that's why it's not, like downwards or upwards, or has like a relationship between output, right, or national income, because your injections is investment, government expenditure, and exports, and your withdrawals are savings, taxation, and imports, right? I just remember it as like IGX and STM just because it, like, I don't know, it just kind of sounds like correct for those terms. But you basically just have to remember those, and those are types of your withdrawals and injections, sorry. And then you also have your money market here. So let's just say we're using the monetarist money supply. So it'll be like that instead of like slightly up like that. That'd be the Keynesian. And then let's use liquidity preference, something like that, just to reflect the liquidity trap. Got LP, and then you have your interest rate and Y there. And then obviously in the question above, you can see there's Y and R. And then you basically find the equilibrium between these two, and you have your ISLM down here, right? That's kind of how I was taught, but yeah, you basically combine the goods market and the money market together. So that's like a little crash course on ISLM. Once you know it, it's not that hard. It looks a bit complicated. It really isn't. But anyways, I just wanted to say before we start on this question that basically all you have to remember for the aggregate expenditure model is Y equals E, right? Because that's the given state. Like on the aggregate expenditure model, you have this, you have a little bit of that, you have E on your y-axis, as mentioned before, and then your Y, which is your national output or national income, sorry, on the x-axis, and then E equals Y or Y equals E, same difference, but that's exactly the same, right? And then you would have usually something that intersects, and then your equilibrium would be found here, right? So that's basically the aggregate expenditure model. Okay, so now that I've got that out of the way, there are three different types. Well, allegedly, from what I've learned, there are three different types. There's the closed model, like fully isolated, literally just one injection, one withdrawal. Then you have two injections and two withdrawals. That's known as the public sector model. And then the third one is the full model. So that includes everything of aggregate expenditure, right? So let me just show you that now. So I'll write down closed model. Sorry if I'm messy handwriting. It's like 11 p.m. at night. So closed model 1 is just Y equals E. However, as said before, E equals AD, which is equal to C. Right, so that would be your closed model. And then you have closed model 2. AKA the public sector model. I'll put public sec for short, right? So that includes C and I. So it'll be Y equals E. Then E equals AD, which equals C plus I. Sorry. The closed model is C or C plus I, and the public sector model, because it's public, you have the government. So I'll just write this over here. Sorry about that, because consumption isn't actually an injection, right? It's just consuming things. That's what consumers do. That's what households do. So that's why the first one has injections, not injections, investment, because it's a type of injection, right? If you think of it that way, it makes sense. And then you have the full model, which basically states that y equals e again. Note that all three of these have y equals e because it is the same thing. And then that equals AD, which equals C plus I plus G plus X minus M. Now, the interesting part about the full model is the minus M. So because it's part of aggregate expenditure, but it's actually taken away. So what happens in the aggregate expenditure model is that there's an autonomous part, and then there's a part that has y. So it would kind of make sense if you learn it all the way. This video isn't supposed to teach someone exactly everything in it, but basically, usually if you're to calculate something, this wouldn't be just capital M, it would be little m y, something like that, right? It goes to say with all these variables as well, like they can be anything. G doesn't have to just be like a solid magnitude or value. It can be a type of function, but then you just have to rearrange it for y. I'll explain more with the example above. It's just an example where I derive it using pretty sure it's just the closed model with the public sector, because there's G and T, but there's no imports and exports, which is how you know to determine between this one, and this one, right? So yeah, okay. I'm gonna stop waffling, otherwise this video is gonna be 20 minutes long, and we'll just get straight into the question, and I will throw you guys into the deep end if you have any idea what's happening. So, first of all, I like to start off with finding the goods market. You don't have to. You can start off by deriving R or Y or whatever you want for the money market, but I would start for the goods market just because there's more information to work with, right? So, with the goods market, we know y equals E, which is part of the aggregate expenditure model. So this part would be the aggregate expenditure model. This part will just be like the money market part, and then we're going to bring it to ISLM. Sorry, I didn't make that really clear, but yeah, we're going to be working with the Keynesian cross model first, okay? That's the goods market, which can also be described as injections and withdrawals. It's really confusing. I'm so sorry if I've confused you. I will probably write in the description overview of what I'm saying, or I'll conclude at the end, just so then it makes sense, right? Okay, so we have y equals E, which equals C plus I plus G. No, we don't do G minus T because in AD, obviously, there's no subtract T, because as you can see with the YD, we're going to subtract T, so we don't need to basically double subtract it, right? It's the opposite of double counting. So we can then simply just sub in our value. So we can see C here is 500 plus 0.5 YD, which is just disposable income for anyone that doesn't know, plus investment. Here, as I said, it can be a function. So we've got 1,200 subtract 25R, and then plus G, that's just one single value, which is 1,000. Okay, so this looks a bit long, doesn't look hard, it's just long, it's just like y. And then what you want to do is basically simplify everything down. We have y equals, where's my calculator? We have 500 plus 1,200 plus 1,000, which is equal to 2,700, then plus 0.5, and we know YD is y minus E, so we can just substitute that in, and then subtract 25R. But we also know what taxation is here from the question. Taxation is 0.25y. So we get equals 2,700 plus 0.5. We get y minus 0.25y subtract 25r. But we know that, you know, y minus 0.25y is just 0.75y. It's like 1 minus 3 over 4, right? So we can just, not destroy everything. Do that, right? Subtract 25r. Now, once you get to this stage, you're pretty much set, other than the fact that you need to write it in the form of the aggregate expenditure equation. So you have, typically you have your endogenous part and your exogenous part. Your endogenous part is basically just a multiplier, and any factors that are directly linked to the multiplier, which is like little t, little c, and little m, which basically mean the marginal propensity to consume, the marginal propensity to tax, and the marginal propensity to import, right? So that's just another quick dash over there. So what we're going to want to do is basically multiply this out and bring it to the other side, and then just leave y by itself. Okay, so what we're going to do now is do 0.5 times 0.75. So that's 0.375. So that would equal 2,700 plus 0.375y minus 25r. Right, we've got to that point, and like I said earlier, we just need to subtract the 0.375y from both sides, so we get this. Okay, and we're nearly done here, because all we need to do now is factorize out y, because they both have a common factor of y. Then we have our multiplier part and also our exogenous part, or yeah, autonomous part. So we have y1 minus 0.375 equals this thing minus 25r. Now what I'm going to do is a little bit confusing, but it'll make sense after I explained it. So what I'm going to do is obviously, you know, put y by itself and do a little bit of this, and then do a little bit of that. Right, okay. Here's another thing I need to explain. So here we have our endogenous part and our exogenous part. So the reason why we write 1 over minus 0.375 and then multiplied by this part is to show that the multiply is 1 over something, and then we have this part which isn't affected by income, if that makes sense, which is why we don't just put it as a normal fraction. I mean, you can if you want, it's exactly the same, but just to show the two separate parts, that's how you do it. So here we have our so-called y star, which equals this, and this is basically our final answer for the goods market. Now, because we have one variable that isn't given, and there isn't any extra variables given or values given to find it, we'll have to use simultaneous equations in a minute from the money market. So the money market, really quickly again, the equilibrium would be when, you know, when supply equals demand. This is supply, this is demand for money. Basically, yeah, that's all it is. So to find LP, liquidity preference or liquidity, it would be this, right? Because you've got your precautionary and transactions demand, and you've also got your speculative demand. Don't quote me, that's just what it is, okay? There's different parts, there's like different types of money as well and stuff like that. Don't quote me on that, I'm not that great at macroeconomics anyway. So yeah, just know that LP is made up of L1 and L2, right? And then you got your supply of money, of course. So we can state that L equals supply of money, and this is basically 500 plus 0.4. We can do y minus t. So I got this from this, and the yd is from over here. Yes, the identities do mix because, you know, it's the same thing, right? So that's how you can find yd here. And then you've got your L2, which is just 800 minus 30r, which equals 2,428, which is just from our supply of money from up here, right? So now we've got that, it's just basically simple algebra. So I'm going to speed this bit up because you guys probably know how to do this already. So yeah, just watch me do it. Okay, so I've completed the money market equilibrium, obviously making y the subject. So then we can now state the y star equals y star, basically our two equations from here and here, and then set them equal to each other, and then you find r, and then it's just a simple case of simultaneous equations to find y star. So I'm going to do that really quickly also. So yeah, see you in a minute. Okay, so if you got the answer correct, if you were following along and just doing the question or answer before me, you should have got the answers r equals 4% and y star equals 4,160. So yeah, hopefully that made sense. So just to conclude, as I was going to say earlier, what you want to do with the aggregate expenditure model, which is the left side here, the goods market, is you want to basically find the multiplier part, which is your endogenous part, because those are the things that will impact or have a relationship or direct relationship with national income or total output of the economy. And then the bit in the brackets, so the bit I'm ringing right now, that part is the exogenous part or the autonomous part. This is basically all your variables that aren't part of the multiplier and don't directly impact on national income, but they're still there because obviously it circulates in the economy, right? That's the best way that I can explain it. Probably not the most accurate way, but in terms of being logical, that kind of makes sense, right? And then you have your money market, which is basically the same thing as supply equals demand, but just the demand for money and the supply of money, set them equal to each other algebraically, solve for y star. In this case, it may be the other way in another case or another method. You may set it equal to r and then solve for y first to get y first and then substitute back and get r. But you know, for the method that we're doing right now, if you set both of them to y star and then solve to get r first, and then what you can do is substitute back into either the money market or the goods market. It doesn't matter which one you substitute it back in. It's just I chose this one because it's so much easier to substitute in compared to the other one. So yeah, but because it's simultaneous equations, no matter which equation you use, it should be exactly the same, right? And it's just a simple kind of thought of algebra at that point once you know what you're doing. But if you just remember, for the goods market or the aggregate expenditure model, the y equals e, and for the money market, it's just all of the liquidity preference parts, so L1 and L2 equals the supply of money, and you solve them together and you should be good to go. So yeah, that was a really hard example, and I threw, if you've never done this before, you guys into the deep end. So don't worry if you don't get it. I'll probably post another video on a much easier question. But yeah, this video is already like very long. So yeah, hopefully this made sense and it was helpful, and I'll see you guys later.